Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here for Sound Effects in Ormskirk. Hope everybody's doing really well out there. Today I'm checking out another product. This is the Line 6 Pod Go. This is a really interesting product, something I had to get my head around at first because I was thinking, why have they brought the pod back when the Helix is doing so well? It's so well respected. But actually what this product is a distillation of the Helix technology, so that exactly the same modeling and effects that you'll find in the full fat Helix, the Helix LT and the HX effects, something I've used on my touring board for a very long time, distilled down into a very affordable, lightweight, travel-friendly package, because the Helixes, they're pretty large, bulky units really. So for people who just want to fly around or do a quick show or rehearsal, or just kind of play in a pub band, this really represents everything you need, and it's got some great sounds on board as well. So the way Line 6 have kept the price down, because this is a much more affordable unit if you don't want to spend sort of 700 to over £1,000 on a Helix unit, is by cutting some corners with the construction, but not in a bad way, and by cutting some of the features down, but you still get the same level of sound quality in terms of the amp modeling, the effects, and also a lot of the flexibility that you would expect for anyone from a kind of beginner up to a pro user. So it's metal construction, as you can see on the top here. Where it counts, it's constructed really, really well. You've got the expression pedal on here, which is going to double as volume and wah, and also as two different expression parameters if you want. Nice controls on here, everything feels really solid. And then 8 non-latching foot switches with a coloured strip on there as well to indicate their function. So far, so good. Nice coloured screen on here. This is a nice high resolution screen, very easy to read from multiple different angles, and then all the relevant controls. Now, the first area that's been cut down significantly is the I/O. So we've got no XLR outs on here. The routing is a little bit less flexible in terms of both the signal path and what you can do here, but it's got everything it needs where it counts, because you've got a headphone out, you've got a main out, which is going to run as unbalanced or balanced if you want to use jack to XLR cables. You also have a stereo effects loop on here as well. Now that means that you can run stereo effects in the loop and assign that anywhere in the signal chain you want, or even better, you can do 4-cable method, which is just a really nice feature of this. And that can be combined with the amp out as well, just here, which will run the signal before the cab block or the IR that you've got. So you can run into the front of your amp or into the power amp of your effects return on your amp if you just want to use the modeling on here. So it's very, very flexible indeed. We do also have a USB socket on here as well, which is going to allow you to turn the unit into a fully fledged 96 kilohertz 24-bit audio interface, which is pretty remarkable really. This is all you need to record great guitar tones, or even do reamping later down the line, because you can record the dry signal as well. Now there's also the Pod Go Edit app, which Line 6 provide free, which allows you to create presets very, very easily, and also store those in a library feature as well. Although I have to say, this is one of the easiest units I've ever edited presets on. So what I thought we'd do here is we'd plug this in. I'm going to do it DI'd straight into my audio interface in stereo, and we'll have a listen to some of the sounds, and I'll show you how easy this is to use. Now, as ever with these units, the presets that the unit comes with, some of them are okay, some of them are bordering on pretty much unusable. So take the presets with a pinch of salt. If you tweak this unit and really get to grips with it, you can create some really fantastic sounds, as you can with the Helix range. So basically any of the sounds that you can create with the Helix you can do on here as well. And some of the greatest guitar tones I've ever heard have been constructed with the Helix units. As I say, I use the HX effects on my own touring pedal board. So this really is a fantastic device, but I recommend that if you're interested in one of these, just don't use the presets, just start learning how to edit your own, upload your own IRs on here, or use the cab block. And it's a very, very flexible unit. You've got a ton of different parameters that you can control, both in the amp and the cab block as well. In fact, it's surprising how many different mics you've got available, the positioning of those mics, parameters like early reflections, for instance. So there's a lot of power contained within this unit. So let's plug it in. Along the way, we'll have a listen to some of the presets and see what you think, guys. I'm pretty impressed with it. So I've got the Pod Go hooked up here, running in stereo, straight into my audio interface, guitar plugged in as usual, just running DI basically. Let's go through the controls. So the first thing you'll see, the screen here is divided into two halves. You've got the top half and the bottom half, and they do actually correspond to the controls, hence this dividing line here. So the top controls here allow you to change the view between the stomp box mode, allowing you to see which stomp boxes are on. You can see we've got 6 different stomp boxes here that correspond to the foot switches. If we press view again, we're into the edit mode, which allows us to select different blocks using this dial here. And then we can basically edit those blocks in various different ways. So if we tap on this button here, we actually bypass the block. And then the lower part of the screen gives us an idea of what the actual block is. So in this case, we've got a Scream 808 distortion, which is obviously a tube screamer. If we use the lower dial, we can cycle between all of the different effects. And then underneath here, we've got the parameters for that effect, which map to these different controls. So it's very, very intuitive. Now, these particular controls have multiple functions. If we tap on the control, let's say we change the dial, tap on the control, it will go to the default for that particular control, which is quite nice. If we hold it down, we can actually now map this control to any of the parameters within the effect, which is very cool actually, that you can rearrange these as you want. We can assign that particular control or particular parameter to a controller, any of the controllers on board, or we can hit the learn function to assign that particular controller to a learn function, say this expression pedal or an external expression pedal of which we can attach to. So if we come back to this view here, if we push on this dial here, we then get access to all of the different effects types for this particular block. So we've got distortion, dynamics, EQ, modulation, delay, reverb, pitch, filter, and the looper. And again, this is split into two halves, divided by the line in the middle. So the top one allows us to cycle between the different effects types. And then when we've actually selected our effects type, the bottom one, which is kind of tricky to do, I don't want to block the screen, allows us to cycle between the different effects within that particular block. So all these different distortions and overdrives that we've got here. When we've found the one we want, we just push the button and we're straight into that particular effect, which is really cool. Now, there's a little bit more that we can do with this signal chain. Now, unlike the Helix LT and the full fat Helix, we can't have multiple signal paths going. So we can't do parallel signal paths or anything, but we do have some flexibility. So what we can do, if we hit the action button here on this distortion or any block, we can move it around utilizing the controls here. So now, if we cycle the dial, this distortion is being moved around in the block. You're hearing a little pop there as it's sort of moving through the different signal chains. But this allows us quite a lot of flexibility. So we can place delays, choruses, whatever, before or after the amp. We can place them in between the cab and the amp block. So you can see here, we've basically got our expression pedal, we've got wire and volume. I think that's a compressor, overdrive, amp, cab, delay, reverb, and an EQ at the end. And these can be pretty much anything we want. So at any point here, we can copy the block and paste it as well. Go back to the view control here, move over to the next block, say the amp here, tap down on this particular parameter here, and we can cycle through the different amps. So there is a very, very easy interface at play here. It's really, really simple. Now, if a particular block has more parameters than will fit on the screen, that's where the page buttons come into play. So here we can page between more parameters, and there's actually a lot going on here in terms of some of the parameters that you've got. Although this is kind of the budget version of the Helix, if you like, so the Pod Go, although it says Pod, it's definitely a budget version of the Helix technology. You've got a lot of parameters here. So bright, sag, ripple, the bias. You've got the bias X, whatever that means. And then you've got your standard amp control, so drive, bass, treble, presence, and master. And one of the reasons why this is such a useful, flexible control setup is because Let's say, for instance, you know that your master volume is always going to be on 100 for a clean amp, let's say. You want the full dynamic bloom and range that you get from doing that. So you're never going to use that. If I tap on that parameter and hold it down, I could change this to be, for instance, the sag. Maybe I'm going to use that more and I want it on page 1. So you can set this up in surprisingly flexible ways to work the way that you want it to work, essentially. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning is the mode switch. So if we go back to this view here, at the moment, the foot switches correspond to the effects. Now, if I hold down the foot switch, I can assign which of the blocks I want that foot switch to be. Very straightforward indeed, up to 6, of course, as you can see. However, if you want this to be in preset mode, hit the mode foot switch, and now these parameters have changed to be bank up and bank down, as you can see on here. Very easy to read as well, and then 4 presets per bank. So we can very easily switch between the presets, and then go up a bank, let's say, grab the cartographer, and at any point we want to go in and change any of the effects, switch them on or off. So at the moment we've got this. Turn on the delay. The compressor. Really, really simple to use. Now, when you want to save a preset that you've edited, just tap the save button here. So both of these buttons together will save the preset for you. When you go into that mode, you can name the preset very, very easily, hit the save button, change the destination, whatever you need to do, or you can hit cancel, of course. So that's really simple to do as well. There's a sort of extended menu set up here as well by pressing both of the page buttons together that allows you to change the global EQ, some global settings, and your controllers and your bypass. And then we come on to the controls at the far end here. So you've got obviously a volume control for the headphones and for the main outs, and the amp out as well, of course. And then you've got the expression pedal. Now, by default, this will control either the volume or the wah, depending on what this LED is set to here. So at the moment, it's on volume. If you push the top of the pedal down, you will actually, like a latch on here, basically, you'll switch to the wah mode or expression 1. And you can basically use the menu to assign one of these parameters. Let's say the time here. You can assign that, or any parameter, to expression 1, and then that's now mapped to the foot switch. It's as simple as that. Set your minimum, maximum value, or of course you could hit the learn function and then move the actual pedal and it will do it that way to make things as simple as possible. Then down the bottom here, you've got tap tempo. Very easy, and then hold the foot switch down and you've got a tuner, which is a very nice, accurate tuner, fully chromatic obviously, and you can change the reference pitch as well, and whether you want it to mute. So in all respects, this is absolutely a pro level unit that you could utilize as a small fly rig. Just stick it in the bag and go, you know, flying with this. Even the Helix LT is quite large, so this really represents a really fantastic setup for guys who want to travel light, have a whole array of different sounds, the ability to upload IRs, so on and so forth, and flexibility, or at least some flexibility of signal path. For the vast majority of us, this is going to be more than enough, and we will not need to utilize the full capabilities of the Helix LT or the Helix. So it's a very, very interesting unit. So there we go, guys. That is the Pod Go from Line 6, available right now at Sound Effects in Ormskirk. If you click the link in the description below, that'll take you to the website where you can purchase this unit or check out more details as you so wish. Hit the like and subscribe buttons below as well, and then any new videos that get uploaded to the channel, you will be notified as soon as those go live. All right, guys, my name's Tom Quayle. Make sure you check out Sound Effects in Ormskirk, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.